I welcome you all to the session on technology for accelerating rural development.
I love the graphic behind this. It's really nice. Very
Thanks.
nice. It's so different.
To start the session, please join me in welcoming Mr. B. Tyagarajan, Chairman CII National Task Force on Rural Development and Migrant Workforce, and Managing Director of Blue Star Limited, to give his opening remarks and take the session forward. Thank you.
Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Dr. Nandini Rangaswamy, Deputy Chairperson, CII Southern Region, co-chair of CII National Task Force on Rural Development and Migrant Workforce, and Managing Director of the legendary Chandra Group. Mr. Vinod Sharma, Managing Director, Deki Electronics Limited. Mr. Ashank Desai, Founder, Vice Chairman and Managing Director of Mastec. Dr. Payal Kanodia, Chairperson and Trustee of M3M Foundation. Ladies and gentlemen, members from the media, a very good morning to you once again. On behalf of CII and on my personal behalf, I extend a warm welcome to all of you for this important session on technology for accelerating rural development. We all compete for the audiences. So many sessions are going on. I'm very happy that you could come over for this session and for your commitment to this subject. I'm delighted to be moderating this session on a platform that brings together acclaimed thought leaders for strategic discussions on the contours of Indian economy across multiple dimensions. This year's session is particularly significant. You're aware of it, as it has been stated in many sessions here. India at 75 and India's G20 presidency, and there would be a platform to share India's reform and growth stories across the world. We also have a record attendance in this session of CII's Annual General Body Meeting. I have distinguished panelists in many respects. They all have done work led from the front, so it will be interesting to listen to them. Before we get into the deliberations, allow me to share a brief background of this particular subject. India's rural economy has emerged as the most significant sector for the development of the nation, which is driven by multiple growth factors. So we in CII believe that India's transformational growth cannot happen without addressing the rural development. That's the commitment, so that's why there is an exclusive committee for this subject. The Indian technology sector, on the other hand, is growing fast, and it is set to grow at 8.4% in FY 2023 to hit 245 billion in size. These trends have created an environment ripe for innovation, allowing startups and traditional players to introduce disruptive business models that address gaps. Private equity investments in the agri-tech space, for example, have skyrocketed in the last 4 years, growing at more than 50% per annum to aggregate approximately 6.6 lakh crore by 2020. Investments in the sector have been focused on opportunities that address systemic issues, building sustainable systems, and ensuring inclusive growth. Several technology giants see this space as a new growth opportunity. Close to our heart, as it is being stated in number of forums, you look at the UPI penetration itself in India as a whole in the rural economy. That is another great initiative giving us the confidence that technology is an enabler for rural development. And there are multiple subjects where the traditional models are to be replaced with the digital, or we are coming to a conclusion that only by leveraging the technology we will be able to do that rural development work in a scalable and sustainable way. There are still significant challenges that need to be addressed. So the first one is the limited access to technology and digital infrastructure in quite a few places. Second, the lack of awareness and technology adoption amongst quite a few stakeholders, including farmers. There are infrastructure issues at some pockets. Fourth, the inability to lend sustainable and scalable technology solutions at an affordable cost at quite a few locations. So you have many suggestions that are tabled, like people interested like you and other stakeholders within CII and the government. The first one being bridging the digital divide and providing awareness campaigns and investing in the basic infrastructure through CSR and other funds, and fostering collaborations between technology developers, government agencies, and non-profit organizations. I was telling my fellow panel members that even when you have funds, you have a situation where close to 50% is coming back at the end of the year because we are not able to execute the projects in quite a few locations. Case in point is, say for example, digital education. There is a time-tested model for that, and there are agencies who have got into that, but still the capacity that is available to deliver is not there. It will be ironic to see the funds in a huge volume coming back at the end of the year that we are not able to deliver. So the panel has, my fellow panel members have been in the forefront. I told you they have executed projects. They have been using technology, leveraging technology. They are also people who have innovated on many fronts. So today we will hear from them one after the other, their own experience and the suggestions and how we can scale our interventions forward. First, I will open with Dr. Nandini Rangaswamy. She is Deputy Chairperson of CII Southern Region, and she had been the co-chair of this task force on rural development and migrant workforce. She is an inspirational figure to me, particularly myself. I worked with her now for more than 2 decades. Their institution, you all may be knowing a PSG group, and quality education across the nation, and many aspire in South to be part of that. I was telling Ashank, who is on the governing council of IIT, IIM, that many would prefer PSG more than IIT. That's the truth in South at least. She has dedicated herself to also empowering women through women's self-help groups. And she, apart from education, even healthcare is a subject close to her heart. And she runs charitable hospitals. And thank you for sparing time. Nandini, that first I will begin with you on your perspectives.
Thank you, Tyagarajan, for the nice introduction. Chairman, CII National Task Force on Rural Development, Mr. Ashank Desai, Dr. Payal Kanodia, and the others on the dais. Thank you for inviting me to be part of this very important and much needed session on accelerating technology for rural development and from my perspective, especially in the area of education. It is indeed a privilege for me to be part of this panel today. We are aware that technological upgradation and inclusive growth have been the focal development points in rural India. Higher and better productivity, socio-economic equality, harmonizing modern technology and sustainable growth can be considered the pillars of the nation's progress. Digital literacy and connectivity have strengthened the labor market and provided a platform to educate and become financially independent in a quite a large way, but we have a long way to go. Enhanced innovation has helped the rural markets improve their growth prospects, and policymakers support reforms beyond subsidies and sector-specific approaches. In India, we have the largest youth population, around roughly around 67%, but also residing in rural areas. So more focus there is required for technology intervention in education, and this will enable the rural youth in creating for themselves an improved quality, accessibility, and affordability in their career choices. Digitalized education system has a potential to improve rural education by giving students access to resources and knowledge that would otherwise be unavailable. As an educator, I feel technology can strengthen the education system in India by creating an interface for modern education systems. In the long term, education in a rural setting should be focused on strengthening the labor market for equal participation, especially in the Tier 3, Tier 4 towns, where students don't have the access to good placements and placements of their choice. By increasing the quality of education through technology in rural areas, we can significantly impact the development and, of course, create better and more suitable employment opportunities. The technological innovation in the education system has supported in reducing the gap to some extent between the required and available resources. The way forward to strengthen the rural education system in India is to enable educators, parents, and of course, very importantly, the government to adapt to the newer technologies and innovative practices, and also for the government to create the necessary infrastructure required to deliver education via technology in the rural areas. Creating a conducive environment, like I said, in creating an inclusive and intuitive learning platforms. Education startups are also a solution to creating an affordable and efficient rural infrastructure, promoting edupreneurs with their innovative ideas, but they need to be there in the long run. They need to look at it as in a long run, and they need to be there for a long time, because it's not about education keeps evolving, and we need sustainability in that area. So with these few words, I'd just like to end here, and thank you, Chairman, for giving me the opportunity. This is a very important subject that we are talking about and needs to be seriously looked into for the future of our nation. Thank you.
I will move on to Vinod, Ms. Vinod Sharma. He's the Managing Director of Dekhi Electronics, known as Electronics Man within CII. He played a very active role in developing this capability. So you're aware that we were highly dependent on China and in several sectors. So he stepped into contributing in formulating many PLI schemes as well, and in the advocacy matters. So he's connected with many industries. And apart from that, he was also the chairman of the CII Uttar Pradesh Council, and he allocates significant amount of time in competitive management skills that he imparts for anyone. And CII has many people that who come forward to contribute to causes that are beyond their own needs, that putting the industry first. So thank you for joining, Vinod, in the subject of leveraging technology for rural development. Your views? Anywhere, wherever you are comfortable.
Thanks very much, Mr. Tyagarajan, and thank you, the team that's responsible for getting me on this podium today. It's not a subject that I normally speak on, but I must say that I very much value this opportunity because it gave me time and take the initiative to learn a little more about this area. So I'm only going to share some of those learnings that I've had in the past few days. Technology, and Tyagarajan mentioned that I have spent a considerable amount of my time on this whole policy advocacy around electronics and technology and manufacturing in India. 30, 40 years ago, you know that a lot of electronics was made in India, and then we went through a phase where we became largely traders or brand stampers, and all that capability went out of the country. And today, of course, when we look at where we are in comparison to our neighbor, there are a lot of lessons to learn, and let's say the opportunity ahead of us is really, really very large. Coming to how can we apply this, and the reason why electronics is so important, and we kept telling the government all the time, was I think the mistake we made was that we looked at that as a sector, as a vertical, like they look at any other vertical. The truth is that this is a horizontal. It's an enabler today, and there is no facet of our life that is not touched by electronics and hence technology, especially if we combine that with connectivity, if you combine with what's happening on the ground today. So if you look at rural development, I would put it into two parts, and one of them is what Madam Nandini already started talking about. How do we educate the rural folk better? It could also include how do you live better, whether it's smart water management, whether it's electricity management. Smart water will include things like solar pump. How long can you continue to give people free electricity which they don't get? With which they probably in the night switch on or leave a pump on, so that our water table is getting eroded. And so fortunately our sector, electronics and technology, offers a lot of very smart solutions that can be applied to the ground, and I'll come to some of them very quickly. There's also the whole issue of e-medicine or telemedicine, that can be dealt with. But I thought because the other speakers today will talk a lot more, I know Mr. Desai would also talk about that hopefully. I would focus a little more on the ag tech piece of the thing, which is how can we support agriculture itself. So I think if my figures serve me right, we are at about $400 billion in about 2020, and we want to go to $600 billion in the next now 7 years. By 2030, we want to be at $600 billion. The good news is that half that increase can come out of agro-tech interventions. That's almost, in fact, there is a McKinsey report that puts that number at $95 billion in the next few years that we can achieve. And I'd like to sort of talk a little bit about three examples from that area, or three key stakeholders who are contributing to this. So if you look at what's already happening, some of the large companies we know, ITC, eChopal, we read about this long back, and they've gone a long way, and I know that they have now, what Madam Nandini was mentioning about, not having that person, the guy who can bridge the digital divide in the village, and they've appointed people called Sanchalaks who can do that. So the whole issue of getting rural entrepreneurs empowered to be able to take on the good work in each of these villages is obviously one of the things that I know ITC has done a great job on. SBI, for example, through the Yono Krishi app, is trying to, so all of them, what we are trying to do through technology is bridge, obviously, largely markets to the farmers. So that's of course one, reducing the intervention of middlemen, hence cutting down on a lot of leakages that were happening, leakages of value that were happening in that system. We also know that Mahindra's, for example, did this whole thing about tractors and rental services. So mechanization as a service, and that's an emerging area. So there are some of these large companies that have done some formidable work. They know a lot about this, and there are a lot of challenges as we spoke about. The government, in this case, I must say, has really stepped up. As they did with our sector, I'm very, very impressed with, or let's say, would like to compliment these people, the government, on what they've been able to do. So, for example, we've set up they've spent $750 million, I'm told, on setting up 10,000 FPOs, farmer producer organizations, right? Now, this, along with the whole agri stack that has been developed, which is a unified database, takes into account the holdings of these farmers, the soil conditions, the climatic conditions, etc., that they're putting together. Soil health cards, and digital soil health cards, we know about that. And then very recently it was announced that the whole fertilizer subsidy or access to fertilizers at that price is also being moved to the direct benefit transfer platform. open source for digital public infrastructure. So these are some of the, and then there's ENAM, the National Agro Market, that's being now fully made electronic. These are not small steps, in my opinion. I remember that I used to work with the Dutch government at one point of time, and I always wondered how an orchid in Thailand is actually auctioned for sale in Japan within a few hours, but that auction is taking place in near Amsterdam, right, in Kokkenhof. So how are they able to do that? And they were using technology very well. And I think something very similar is beginning to happen in India, as we see. And this is reflected also out of another whole area that I wanted to touch upon a little bit, on the startups and what they're able to do about it. Very happy to know that venture capital funding in this area of ag tech for startups is, I think, about $1.6 billion today, out of which about 1.2 is actually come in the last 2 years. So it's picking up, it's accelerating, and I think it's funded about 1,400 startups so far. So also the ticket size of what the startups are able to get out of the venture capital fund is increasing. They are in many areas. There are about 9 subcategories of what they're working on. 5 of them obviously get bulk, almost 90% of this amount. But largely the downstream B2B and B2C connections are the ones that the largest interest have been done. And I found that some of these startups, Ninja Cart, Absolute, D-Heart, of course, is well known, Waycool, Cropane, MoveFarm, Egos. So everybody is trying to look at this whole area in a very, very innovative way. But what is coming together is the fact that we have sensors that we can put on the ground today, which are reasonably inexpensive, find the humidity, the soil conditions, the nitrogen content of the soil. We can put out a sensor and test the humidity in the air. We can decide, for example, based through a sensor, provided there is enough electricity, and that could be done through even solar or solar pumps, be able to do projects where the right amount of water, the right amount of fertilizer, the right amount of pesticide can then be sprayed through drones, for example. So all this is, it's something that 5-7 years ago were the subject of fiction, is actually happening in villages. There are real test cases that have been done. What remains to be done, I think, is how do we stitch together this whole ecosystem? How do we bring together a lot of us which have largely, whether it's education or telemedicine, coming to the other side, a lot of solutions that have been tried in the urban areas with some challenges, with some tweaking, can also be applied to the rural area. Yeah, I'll stop with that. Thank you.
Thank you, Vinod. You can indeed talk on this subject. So the Saugata Nida will be knocking your doors. So set aside some 15% time for ditch that electronics council or whatever it is. So we want you for this. So what you mentioned is right. The thing is, my own personal view is this. There are, be it education, agriculture, healthcare, time-tested models are there now. It is piloted, it is proven. The real issue is how do you scale it up and make it a sustainable one for a long time. That's where we are. Even in, one of the important works that we do is tele-ICUs, or the e-ICUs. It's a model that is tested. It is stuck it can save millions of lives. There is absolutely no doubt about it. It comes at a very low cost. But who will fund it? How will we scale it up? That's where it is. So that is another example of that. I will come to you, Ashang, because you will have the last word, because I know you have the ability to connect all this. And before that, I have pleasure in introducing Dr. Payal Kanodia. She is the chairman and trustee of M3M Foundation. We are fortunate, CII is fortunate to have many valuable members who come forward to contribute to the cause that we are committed to. And I know that you had an overnight flight, and thank you for sparing your time and coming over. And we know M3M Foundation has been doing a lot of work in this area, the leveraging digital technologies for rural development. Your perspectives on the subject.
Good afternoon, everyone. It's an honor to be here today and having heard from an educator, the electric man of India, and their viewpoints and their perspectives through a bit of a light on how can we leverage technology in rural areas. We all understand that rural development definitely does play a vital role in the development of India. And the economic growth in India that we are expecting will only happen when we take rural development as a pivot, as a big part of it. If we ignore our rural areas where 65% of our population is living, we definitely cannot reach the target that we are aspiring to do as a country. And to overcome these concerns, as I was asked what we are doing, so we have a program at M3M Foundation, which we call Sarvodaya, which addresses the core socio-economic issues of underdeveloped and marginalized rural communities across India, and it delivers the practical solutions. This program basically aims to bring self-sufficiency and advancement of identified villages to support the overall development of education system, healthcare, livelihood, skill enhancement of youth, as well as women, natural resource management, sustainable agriculture, and livestock management through community engagement, which would inevitably lead to a strong and independent rural ecosystem. M3M Foundation has recently tied up with the government of Haryana to transform about 150 villages in the aspirational district of Nuh. And we aspire to set a benchmark with this project and then maybe transform many more villages across India under the same program. Currently, the development of rural people through technology, as we all know, is very imperative for overall sustainable development. And what matters is how we deploy and apply this technology for greater good. We're trying our bit of this through this program and imparting knowledge and applying and teaching people its application in their real day-to-day lives. And what we've understood is technology really has power to bridge this gap and bring about a transformational change. And it has definitely come across that it offers innovative solutions to address the unique challenges that are faced by people in rural areas. It has empowered the communities that we are working with to leapfrog into a brighter future. So the connectivity, first and foremost, the connectivity that is the foundation upon which technological progress thrives. Access to reliable internet connectivity is something that we have found in rural areas is very, very essential for dissemination of knowledge, communication, and access to critical services. Government and private organizations, they definitely need to work together to build a robust infrastructure and expand the broadband coverage to every rural community. Only then we think that we'll be able to realize the immense potential that lies in the rural areas. Though there has been some growth in this area, but I think there is a long, long way to go, and we need to increase our internet connectivity by multifolds. Education, as we've already heard, is a very important area where technology can make tremendous impact. Online learning platform, and COVID has given us this learning, this opportunity to transform digital education, to digital education, even in urban areas. So rural areas, we can, make the educational resources reach even the most remotest corners. And by equipping rural schools with digital tools, students can have access to high quality education and would also be able to connect to the expert teachers across the nation, or rather across the world, which will help them broaden their horizons. Also, vocational training programs for the youth, especially women, will help in entrepreneurship development and economic development. Also, this will help in bridging the educational gap between the urban and rural communities and provide the next generation with adequate resources that are needed for them, for their advancement and their success. Another area is economic empowerment of women, which we've been talking about for decades now, and their transformation, the economic and environmental and social transformation, which is necessary for the sustainable development of any society, is by empowering women, making them giving them the rights to equality. This has been talked about, but technology will definitely bring about the changes, and it carries the answers to the ideas of lives of women in rural India. And it will definitely be needed for financial literacy to healthcare, entrepreneurship, and education of women. Our Union Minister Smriti Irani in 2002 announced that nearly 20 million women have been certified to digital literacy in the country under PMG Disha program, which is dedicated to global literacy. And this program basically aims to empower people in rural areas by training them to operate computers, give access to devices like tablets, smartphones, etc. And they can learn to send and receive emails, browse the internet, access to government policies and services, undertake digital payment. And this, in fact, reminds me of one example. I was traveling through some village in India, and I did not have cash. And the guy said, "Madam, if you use Google Pay, I use Google Pay too." So that's the real, digitization that has reached to the remotest of the rural areas possible in our country. Healthcare, it's been said enough, done enough, and we've all seen with COVID, the teleconsultation, tele-ICUs, which we just talked about. And it is much needed in rural areas because the healthcare system in rural areas is much behind the times that we are living in today. The wearable devices, the care of women during their pregnancies, the postpartum and prepartum care, health monitoring, disease management in rural communities is where the technology will come handy to us. Also, the most important thing that I see is the technology-driven entrepreneurship. There's a real potential in our rural areas, good to great ideas and budding entrepreneurs, and they have potential to drive rural economies forward. So the initiatives supporting startups and small businesses in rural areas can definitely unleash innovation and create new economic opportunities. So digital marketplaces, e-commerce platforms will enable the rural artisans, farmers, craftsmen, women to showcase their products globally. And they will create avenues for economic growth and sustainable livelihoods. Rural success is fundamentally dependent on the infrastructure development, and technology definitely will have a transformative impact in this area. Renewable energy sources, agri-tech, smart grids, digital platforms for creating rural farms, governance procedures, fostering efficiencies and openness in provision of public services to rural communities is another area that can be touched upon, and that's very, very relevant for rural communities. However, there are potential difficulties that we have often come across when we set out on this journey, and we kind of address these concerns of accessibility, digital literacy, and diversity. Irrespective of the age, gender, socio-economic status, we made sure that everyone in society used technology and benefited from it. To build inclusive solutions and removing the obstacles to development, we also found cooperation from government, technology providers, and local communities, which was very, very crucial for success of our program. And in conclusion, I'd like to say that technology definitely has enormous potential to speed up rural development and contribute to a significant growth of our nation. We definitely can look at empowering rural communities, unleashing their potential, and build a more affluent society by embracing connectivity, education, agriculture, healthcare, and entrepreneurship. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Payal Kanodia. You talked about many aspects, including the challenges that you faced when you set out, and particularly Dr. Aishwarya Magajan has been educating us on a number of things. So we are grateful to M3M Foundation for not only your speech but also allowing him to spend time with us. And you mentioned about also the diversity, inclusion, irrespective of gender, age. Actually, Rumjum is here. She led very successfully the CSR Council of CII. I had noticed this, that in the events that you used to organize as well, two distinct things. A lot of women, lot of youngsters. That is what gives the encouragement that you will see within this call. Number of youngsters showing this interest. That I'm grateful to all of you for showing interest in this subject. I'll move on to Mr. Ashang Desai, a close friend. He has never said no to me for anything. He's the founder, vice chairman, managing director of Mastech Limited. So if you all know, he's one of the persons along with Mr. Narayan Murthy or Nandan Nilekani or Chris Gopalakrishnan, putting India's IT industry in the global map. It is remarkable that I consider it a fortune to have come across him to an industry from India in nascent stages to grow it as a big corporate. That he's an outstanding contributor, rightly recognized as the award for Asia Pacific Outstanding Entrepreneurship Award, which he won. And in CI, the hallmark of Ashang has been, quite a few technocrats will tell you this is possible, that is possible, but to convert it into action, practical, how it can be executed, he has been a mentor for many startups as well. And state a problem, this is where it is, that how technology can, he will give a solution. And rightly, IIM or IIT have him on their governing council. And thank you for coming over, Ashank. Over to you for your opening remarks.
Tyag said, I don't say no to anything what he says. He doesn't give me an opportunity to say no. That's a problem. Anyway, but on a serious note, yeah, Chairman Tyagarajan, Dr. Nandini, Vinod, my friend for many years, Dr. Payal. So I'm going to talk about obviously technology and impact on the rural transformation. Time is short, so I'll see how much I can cover because I wanted to give actual examples also. So as all of us know, if you really look at village transformation, it's a systemic problem, really. Efforts are needed at every level. However, the problems are systemic. For example, if you want to improve health, you need to worry about water. If you worry about water, you need issue in the education. If you talk about spending money on health and education, you have to talk about sustainability and livelihood. So these are interrelated issues really, and you need to tackle them one by one. At the same time, one should be aware that you really need a program at a national level to transform really rural village. You have to handle all these multiple issues. So that's point one. Point two is what's happening really is we have innovations all around happening, but they are not getting scaled. At national level with 1.4 billion people, we really need scaled solution, and we need to find solution not only to use technology, but use them to scale it. And that's where I'll talk about this organization called WHEELS that I'm associated with. WHEELS is an association started by IITians when we got inspired by Mr. Abdul Kalam, where I had organized a big IIT event with 5,000 IITians in Mumbai. And many organizations came out of it, but WHEELS is one of them. So WHEELS stands for W Water, H Health, E Education, E Energy, and L is Livelihood and Sustainability. So IITians in US formed that organization, and I am driving the India part of it where actually execution is happening. So what we do is we handle this problem of all 6 areas under a concept called Smart Village as an overall overall what I would say platform, and now CII has been Tyag has been helping us to connect with CII also so that we can work with CII. So what we do is we find IITians and IIT system has so much of technology today. Can we use it for rural transformation? Or can we take an existing innovation which is happening at a ground level and bring alums of IIT and IIT system to scale it at a national level? So that is our mission. Our mission, of course, is very big. What we are saying really is our vision is to create a material impact on 20% of what we call urban. Urban is rural-urban. There is this whole interface of urban people in the rural areas, or they can be called urban. That means impacting 160 million people by 2030. So that's the kind of large target we have taken on ourselves. And as I said, we work in all these 6 areas. So I'll give you quick examples of some of these. In water, what we are doing in Himachal, state of Himachal, there has been a great effort by government to provide taps. And 90% households, I believe, have taps, etc. But the issue is of supply. It's not only about getting last mile, which is important, but supply. So there is a great effort happening under Wales for rejuvenating springs. See, there are so many springs in Himachal Pradesh which are getting dried up, and then people go and drill bore wells. They do all kinds of things which are not helping environment and so on and so forth. So this project is rejuvenating springs, and each spring rejuvenation costs around 1 lakh rupees. I'll not get into financial model of it, but we work with government of Himachal, of course, and we have an IAS officer, ex-IAS officer who is helping us. She's driving, called Gauri Kumar, and then another IITian, Yogesh. So all of them are working. As we speak, we have already rejuvenated 50 springs, which is impacting villages. And government of Himachal Pradesh, of course, wants us to do 500 such things as we go along. So that's project 1, where technology has been used. The second one is health. Panelists talked about telemedicine. We are actually using telemedicine at hundreds of centers in Maharashtra, Andhra Pradesh, Chhattisgarh, and so on, where this whole system of rural getting 2 people with equipment, technology equipment, which measures all the BP and various other things. Then there is a video which connects it with the doctor. Today, the question of healthcare, as all of us know, is a person needs a healthcare, but he or she has to travel to a place, and that is not about cost of travel, but the livelihood, the cost of losing 1 day of their work, which is 1 day's salary. So idea is telemedicine helps to make that happen. We have around 100, 200, 250 plus centers who are working. Again, not getting into technology, but using technology to impact with a minimum cost. They have to pay some price for getting that. I'll again not get into financial model. Maybe if time permits, we can talk. The third education impact is in education. At IIT Bombay, there is a person called Khannan who has done what is called as spoken tutorials. Spoken tutorials is a full video-based system to train people in multiple languages. The key here is it can teach you in 22 different languages, many areas, presently focused on technology, training them on CE and many other things. But we are training now in other areas, even in healthcare, by using spoken tutorial. And there is a great example somewhere in Maharashtra where it has been used for impacting women-related issues through training them through a spoken tutorial in Marathi probably. So the whole technology use here is driven by IIT Bombay. It is work of many years actually, and it's worth seeing it actually. Difficult to describe it, but the spoken tutorial method of training is impacting not thousands, maybe millions, because there are now 1,500 centers where this is getting used. particularly in the Technology and Engineering Center. Then I'll talk of energy. Again, IIT Bombay has a produce which Wheels is supporting now. As you know, the food, there are 129 million farmers today, families. Out of that, 50 million families who work on food related, that means the fruits and related part of agriculture. And 1/3 of it is lost because of not availability of cold storage and so on. Obviously, it's good to say buy cold storage, which they can't afford, nor there is an energy. So here is a solution produced by IIT Bombay alums, where you have to use 30 liter of water and nothing else, just water. And then there is a cooler there, which reduces the temperature inside the cooler between 5 to 20 degrees, depending on outside ambient temperature, but ensures that no energy, no solar energy, no obviously diesel or any other energy, just plain water. And it cools and keeps and sees that food or fruits are not lost in terms of becoming stale. So this is again used by in multiple states today. I can give you some numbers separately. So that's energy. Now someone talked also in panel about livelihood. Ultimately that matters whether there is a transformation happening or not. So as we speak, we are building in Maharashtra in a place called Pandharpur. There is an organization called SWERI, which is training the villagers to become entrepreneurs through various training that we are imparting them, various education and various support of incubation that we are giving them, again supported under Wheels umbrella. So the point is, hopefully all of these will get scaled at multiple places, and from Himachal we can go to Uttarakhand maybe and many states. For education, instead of focusing on Maharashtra and Andhra Pradesh, we'll go to West Bengal and so on. So that is a journey. There are hundreds of IITians involved in this organization. We have councils, we have state level, regional level organization, and so on. I'll not get time to describe all of that organization. The idea is to bring power of IIT system, IIT alums, and now we are not making it only IIT alums. Honestly, our health is driven by doctors in US, which is a cardiologist from India, but settled there as a very well-known cardiologist. So we are having also non-IITians. It's not just IITians, but the point I'm making is using the IIT and technology and whatever is happening, how we can transform is something that we are trying to do with a huge aim of making large impact as we move along. So thanks, Tyag, for.
Thank you, Ashank. Indeed, we are proud of Wheels Foundation. I'll come back to you. Wheels Foundation, it's Dr. Abdul Kalam's vision itself that many years ago, as Ashank mentioned, that he believed that it is the technology which can accelerate this. It can be scaled. So you IITians, you are all doing well. Why don't you come together for this cause? That's how the Wheels Foundation came up. And Stanford has got an Ideal Village program, which is again closely connected with the Wheels, and they were kind enough to bring them to us. And we found suddenly an alignment, Wheels agenda or our agenda and Stanford Ideal Village. I'll come to you on the financial model. On the lighter side, when Stanford team and Wheels wanted to come and meet, I thought our financial problem is solved. But they said we have all the ideas but no money, and I fell off my chair that day. So we will talk about it. And while I'm coming to you, we have got a few minutes before audience can ask the questions. You mentioned about the challenges. I suppose one of the challenges is the number of NGOs available for the intervention. Do you have such issues? And how do we resolve this? In other words, my assumption is time-tested technology solutions are there, but you don't have enough people to execute it and scale it.
So, if I talk about challenges, we really didn't face challenges from the local people. They were very welcoming. They really wanted someone to come and intervene with the right solutions, right ideas. And in fact, local people themselves came forward from the villages and gave us innovative ideas to implement our project. The major constraint that was there was probably the awareness. People were not aware of the government policies. People were not aware of who to go to get a solution to their problem. Even though they know that what is the solution, what can be done to overcome a certain problem, they have ideas like solarizing their villages or having solar power to irrigate their agricultural fields. They have all those ideas, but they do not know who to reach out to help them put this into action. That's a major problem.
Thank you. Continuing from there, that how do we solve this problem? There are, Ashang mentioned, she mentioned, Nandini mentioned, these things, do we take a film of those models, working models? How do we demonstrate in pockets that this is possible? It's for all stakeholders, sometimes the villagers, sometimes even the government authorities, they are not even aware it is possible. Like in IETF, when we demonstrated the EICU, we found many were not aware that it is possible.
Yeah, so few suggestions. I think I also heard Mr. Desai elaborate a little bit upon this whole problem of scale. So to me, it appears that we have some solutions, but they are distributed, and we have problems which are across these 6.5 lakh villages. Right. The good news is that the government has spent, I think, under the BharatNet program, some 42,000 crores. 2.5 lakh panchayats are supposed to be digitized through the BharatNet optical fiber network. So that infrastructure has been built. I believe 1.9 or 2 lakhs is already done. Another 0.5 is left, and that should happen soon. Now, with that infrastructure there, I think the missing piece is someone on the village side who is able to take on the rural side an entrepreneur, a change agent, a change leader, whatever you call him, 1 or 2 or 3 or a group of these people, her and him, put together, that needs to be aware of what's available here, and then we need to do that. So on the side, I mean, I'm reminded of Barefoot College. I'm sure that they did a phenomenally good job of training some of these people. What comes to mind is what Taiwan was able to do in the semiconductor industry. They sort of called back with the patriotic call, some of these experts from the semiconductor industry, hey, come back to Taiwan, we will set up something for you so that you can transform not only Taiwan but the world for them. Now today, similarly, rural representatives exist in urban landscape. In my factory, there are people who would love to go back to their village and create a change. I think CII is just the perfect organization, in my opinion, the platform. We can get this whole thing together and do a train the trainer, train the leader, train the entrepreneur program. Equip them with a lot of these technologies, not just 1 or 2, do 10 or 15 per village. We can do it across, take some villages, adopt them, nurture them. The idea is that once we build this pipeline of which can continue to transfer technology, ways and means of doing it, and connections. I mean, funds are available somewhere, like you rightly said, and some unutilized funds are coming back. And today, in many other areas, we've solved this digitally, and Mr. Desai would be the perfect guy to tell us about this. But one network, a portal that tells us money is available here, people are available there, skills are here. And the last, one other suggestion that I have is, which we are doing also in our own company. I found that while knowledge can be transferred, skills don't get transferred that easily. Right? So we created a program called Ustad. I mean, I was learning from Mr. Modi. So upskilling through technology and action deployment, I called that. The idea was that in the traditional skills, Ustad transfers that skill to his chelas or to his disciples. So a guy who welds, for example, in my business, welds capacitors for the last 10 years, how much ever I automate my welding machines, this guy really has, he has some value, and which I would love to transfer and retain with the rest of our people. Now, the only way you can do that is if we allow them to do very simple videos. So the Ustad is like a Wikipedia, but it's a Skillypedia on a video, this thing. So when somebody comes into our organization today, he gets 50 videos are pushed to him by the HR, saying, go through these 50, and each one of them has, at the end, of a very simple question. Visual question. These 4 capacitors, tell me A, B, C, D, which one is weld properly, which is not weld properly. If he gets the right answer, he can go to the next video. Now, we're just in the process of doing this, but I imagine that this is something we can do for rural skills. Just put it right out there in that platform. Everybody can contribute, and whoever wants it in the villages, how to repair a solar panel which is not working.
So a very, very practical solution. That 15-20% time is needed for us. By the way, the thing that you mentioned about a portal, skill available, money somewhere, need somewhere. I think Madhu led that, and you were that CSR exchange that we created. That was a pioneering effort. Nandini, I mentioned to you that this constant struggle for, I told you we need in Sri City, which is the district. No, the first thing is digital education. I have money, I want it. I'm not getting the confidence there is an NGO who will commit and deliver it within that 1 year period. It will be a 5-year program, and that is one. So therefore I'm asking you, how prepared is the education sector to leverage the technology and take it forward?
I would say not so prepared, especially in the rural areas, because first of all, the digital, the connectivity and the other issues that the earlier speakers were discussing. And the other thing is the delivery of the curriculum or syllabus embedded with technology is a challenge for teachers. Especially in the rural areas, we have more number of government schools, and government schools are finding it a very big challenge because the number of teachers to student ratio is also very poor, and the connectivity problems, the hardware problems. There are a lot of edutech and startup companies which came in the past 10 years. They tied up with government for providing computer education, IT education, but now they're nowhere on the scene. So as I said earlier, whoever steps into this education startup and who are looking at rural areas, they have to be there in there for a long time, long run. It should be sustainable. Their heart should be in it. Otherwise, it's going to be short-term things don't happen. And the other thing is, for example, the government also needs to be very proactive. For example, now the Tamil Nadu government has launched a very nice scheme called Nan Mudalvan. So this is a scheme that they've introduced in all the government colleges in Tamil Nadu, wherein they're going to teach students on language proficiency for employability. That is through Cambridge. Digital skills for employability and data analytics. They've chosen 3 topics. And this intervention is going to start from the first year of college. It's an excellent scheme, and we hope that it will progress and be successful, because the government is going to finance the whole scheme, the learning part, the delivery part, paying the vendors, everything. So the college has to be responsible to measure the outcome.
Thank you. That way, Tamil Nadu, even in healthcare, Tamil Nadu is the first state where in any part of the state, within 15 minutes, they make available an ambulance. It's a program well executed that way, and I'm sure this also will go on well. But the other subject which I keep, I keep telling Saugata that this is my dream project. I'm afraid that I will fail in that, is how the CII member companies will include the rural engineering colleges politics into their campus recruitment. To begin with, some 10% of the recruitments, whether I'm not even saying you should recruit, but include them, because we are going by the ranking of the colleges. We are going to IIM, IIT and pay 3 crore, 2 crore and all that stuff. That becomes a news, but I included rural colleges. That is not. And we have to persist with that till we get this done. Don't recruit them. At least give them an opportunity to attend the interview.
So as a pilot project, I had mooted, I was heading the CII education subcommittee. I had mooted to the subcommittee, and it was one of our initiatives, and it's yet to take off, but it's going to do it, we're going to do it. But we already did it when I was State Council chair. It's called the CII Institute, Industry Institute Immersion Program, where at least if we could, we have around, in the southern region, we have around 350 educational institutions. So I said select the tier 2, tier 3 towns where these education institutions, our member institutions are located, and at least start this immersion program. Then, you know, the industry and the institute can come together and have various programs, improvements for the students on their employability, their skills, how to attend interviews, etc., etc. And this could be a start, at least with our member institutions, and then we can take it forward. But
True, we will.
only focus on tier 3, tier 4 towns where our member institutions are located.
Great. Ashang, I'm come back to this. Who will fund quite a few projects? How to get money to scale up?
So, Tyag, as you know, one of the principles that we, all of us who are working in rural area, have figured out that if you run a model completely on donation, it is not likely to succeed or scale. For A, obviously because of money available, but B, if someone pays for some service he or she is getting, there is a value ascribed to it. I have another organization called Parfi, where I am one of the founder members, where we are doing training of CII also is supporting us that in Jharkhand, etc. So we charge. So some percentage has to be covered by a person who is getting that service. For example, in this telehealthcare, we do charge some money. So that's one source of money. The second source of money, of course, we obviously have our members, IIT alums as we call, have sufficient financial resources and success. Particularly in US, we have, as you know, a lot of names. So the point I'm saying is we obviously are tapping those sources as a second source of funding this whole thing. So that would.
So I suppose we have to pick a few programs and scale it rather than attempting a number of things. So to that extent, when it comes to technology, we are broadly in agreement. It is the education and skill building, or the healthcare, and of course agriculture related what interventions can be. I'm only happy that now we have the models. It's a question of, and some places it is working, how to scale it up. Normally in CII sessions, if I close it on time, I won't be satisfied. So questions, we can have another 10 minutes with your permission. Yes, sir. Yeah.
Hi, this is Ashish. Very good to hear various facets from medicine to storage to energy to skills. Is there any example where all of this has come together to create a real difference, and then how do you take that exemplar to other places? So in pieces, this is sounding extremely good, but if you were to bring the power of all of this together and then see real change happen, I'm just wanting to get inspired.
Yeah, you can.
Yeah, I can answer that, Tyag, also.
Sorry, yeah. Oh, sure, okay. No, I just, I just met this fascinating young guy called Himanshu Patel the other day. I sit on the board of Quality Council of India, and he was also inducted recently onto that board, thanks to our new chairman who also comes from Gujarat. And this gentleman is the sarpanch, or who used to be the sarpanch, of this village called Punsari. And Punsari, I believe, he's invited me there, 70, 80 kilometers from Gandhinagar. And it was the first sort of awarded Adarsh village. And I got talking to him, and it was fascinating to see his passion. All he did, he says, look, I downloaded whatever the government has to offer to any village. And I just made sure that each one of them was delivered to my village. So from drainage systems, to water, to getting electricity on time, rural medicine, doctors, linkages to banks, setting up a bank in this thing, e-governance. And this guy has done some 112 such interventions. And I believe he's put it on a website or something. And now, of course, the government has recognized his efforts. He's now tutoring or mentoring 10,000 such sarpanches who have volunteered to be a part of the program, So there will be 10,000 Punsari. So I thought I haven't seen it myself, but I think the passion of the person was really a good revelation to me.
It's a good question. Ultimately, it is about that whole system, as I was saying. So the transformation has to happen at a village level as one unit. So if you ask me, are we doing it? No, to be very honest answer as of now. But we have a concept of smart village where there are measurements that are being built. How to measure smartness of a village. Again, time does not permit me to talk about it. There is a dial there, which we are using in a place called Aravalli in Gujarat, not far away from Ahmedabad. That district we have taken up as one of such experiment to do smart village. We are far away from that, to be very honest. We are particularly presently working only in sustainability and education area. But there is a model today available to make that happen. Measurements are available. There is a lot of work done by one IAS officer in Ahmedabad, a Gujarat government and her husband. So we are using that as a model. So that's the whole point. But we need to do it at that level. And we can, but it's a long effort. It's not easy. There are a lot of challenges which we can talk separately.
So I'd just quickly add to this, because you asked, is there an example of it? That's what the Sarvodaya program of our foundation is doing. And it's obviously, it's beginning. Probably next 1.5 to 2 years, we can definitely showcase this model to you.
I didn't hear any panelists speak about data analytics, really targeting. There was some mention about drones and putting fertilizers there. But in today's age, when we speak about data and AI ubiquitousness across, I'm just wondering if any of you have tried that in your interventions.
Specifically with regard to taking a Stanford Ideal Village program is that we set out to take some model villages. I don't think we have yet achieved. We have to keep attempting that. Both from CII Food and Agriculture Center of Excellence. Also, this was one of the proposals. Take one village, whether somebody will come to adopt it. I think it will happen. It has to be. See, what is actually happening is the knowledge is residing bits and pieces, and this communication has to happen. And then we will be able to. The closest I can think of is, again, the corporates or someone supporting should not jump from one to the other. You pick up something, stay there for 10 years till it is transformed. That's what we should do. In CII Tamil Nadu had done something in Kadalur, where it is education and FPO. In Tamil Nadu, healthcare rural is not an issue. The government has done a phenomenal job there. So that is one village where if we persist with, we can show. See, for analytics, multiple things have to happen and a lot of data should be available. Here it's all bits and pieces. As of now, nothing. So if there are no other questions, thank you very much for your interest. You are welcome to contact any one of the panelists. They are willing to share their experience. You are willing to interact with the Secretariat on rural development, migrant workforce. We will be keenly interested. I wish to thank the panelists for coming over. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Chair. Thank you all the speakers for an illuminating session. Thank you, ladies and gentlemen, for your presence in the session and making it so interactive. I now request Mr. Tyagarajan to present a token of appreciation from CII to all the speakers, please. Starting from Dr. Nandini. Mr. Ashank Desai. Mr. Vinod Sharma. Dr. Payal Kanodia. May I request Dr. Nandini to kindly present the memento to Mr. Tyagarajan, please? Thank you, everyone. So we'll close this session. Please have. Thank you, everyone. Please join us in Darbar Hall for the next session. Thank you.